Hello, fellow griever, and welcome to January 28th. It is Tuesday of my final week of reading the Daily Stoic as a little daily nugget to give you to start off 2024. I hope if you've been following along, you have got something from this. I know I have gotten something from just reading it out loud and giving my thoughts. I have worked through the Daily Stoic day by day previously. In other years, it is set to where you can do it every year because it's just by date. It doesn't match the days. So I am going to start with today's reading, and as I get closer to wrapping up this week, I will, of course, summarize a little bit more of my thoughts at the end of the week. But let's go for today. Today is actually a very brief entry. January 28th, Watching the Wise. Take a good hard look at people's ruling principle, especially of the wise, what they run away from and what they seek out. From Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. Seneca has said, without a ruler to do it against, you can't make crooked straight. That is the role of wise people in our lives, to serve as model and inspiration, to bounce our ideas off and to test our presumptions. Who that person will be for you is up to you. Perhaps it's your father or your mother. Maybe it's a philosopher or a writer or a thinker. Perhaps WWJD, which stands for What Would Jesus Do, is the right model for you. But pick someone, watch what they do, and watch what they don't do, and do your best to do the same. So as this applies to our grief journey after loss by suicide, I see a lot of things that I could talk about, but what I'm just going to talk about super briefly is that for me, once I discovered that there were places that I could find guidance, places I could look, namely people who were further along in their grief journey than I was, it was a game changer. The first person that I followed in my grief journey, and mind you, I was several years in. I wish I had found someone sooner, but I remember finding Shelby Forsythia's first podcast, and she had a small community as well, and she still does amazing grief work. Shelby was a guiding light for me in understanding that there was a way to learn to live with excruciating grief. I went on to create some of my own spaces because I needed it to be deeper. I needed it to go into the suicide loss space, and I needed it to go into child loss for myself. And that was the only disconnect that I had with Shelby. Her loss was different, and it was that of a parent by cancer. And I took so very much from her, and yet I just needed to dial in a little bit further. So I did find other places. I found books of other people who had lost children, other people who had lost someone to suicide, and I used those as a guiding light. So for some of you, that could be a therapist. It could be someone in your family. It might be a grief coach you found. It might be this podcast right now. But I do agree with Marcus Aurelius's thought, is find someone that you can help guide you, help model after. And even if you're learning from some of their mistakes, do that. Let them hold up the lantern while you follow behind with your light, looking for it to get brighter as theirs does. Until next time, fellow griever, talk soon.